Welcome to a new episode of the Let's Turn the Tide podcast by Veolia Near and Middle East. I'm Nadine Zidani, your host, and I'm delighted to present our special series, Women for Climate Action, in the occasion of the International Women's Day happening on 8th March. And today, I am thrilled to welcome Rana Hajirasouli. Rana, welcome on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Nadine. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for accepting our invitation. It's a pleasure to have you. So before we start our conversation, I want to introduce you to our listeners. So Rana, you are the founder and CEO of The Surplus, a digital platform for businesses to optimize their resources and reduce their emissions profitably. You are currently pursuing a PhD at the University of Cambridge, specializing in industrial resilience. And you have more than 10 years of experience in sustainability, climate change, and the circular economy, and have won many prestigious awards, including being acknowledged on Vanity Fair's annual Global Goals list for UN SDG 12. This is very impressive.
Thank you very much. It sounds like a mouthful.
No, that's amazing. And how does it feel to be on Vanity Fair?
Definitely out of place. I don't think I ever took myself as being someone to be on Vanity Fair, but I think it was a really humbling experience because the list itself was quite incredible.
Yeah, it's what I've seen. Amazing. So Rana, you are in the tech startup / climate ecosystem, which is still, predominantly male dominated. So we would love to hear more about your story, how, everything started and how you came to become, the CEO and founder of The Surplus now.
Thanks for that, Nadine. Well, I think it was a really interesting story because throughout a bulk of my career, actually, I worked in kind of a litigation outsourcing company, a biomarine research conservation institute. Then I was kind of working in an SME factory that was manufacturing chemicals. And what that really meant was I had to deal with a lot of smaller suppliers and got to understand SME pain points a lot better. And in the middle of all of this, I found out that there was a lot of stuff that wasn't being optimized, things that were being thrown out, excess materials, extra space. It just felt that there was a real missing link in that supply chain. And I thought that I really wanted to do something about it.
So when did you start The Surplus?
So we actually started in December 2021 and then commercially launched in October 2022.
Okay, amazing. And I'm following you on social media. I can see the growth, of the business and how successful you are right now.
Thank you so much. I don't know what to say about that. We're trying our best.
No, that's the reality. You're doing an amazing job. So Rana, you kind of evolved in a male-dominated industry, if I may say. Can you elaborate on perhaps some of the challenges you have faced as a woman?
I think a lot of the challenges are not necessarily gender specific, but being a young woman probably contributes a little bit more to that. We found some hiccups as a female majority startup. And one of them is that there's an assumption that women don't actually have technical competencies or understanding of technical kind of solutions. So a lot of the time we get met with, well, is there, can I speak to your colleague so-and-so who's one of our male counterparts, so we can actually talk about product related things or resource related concerns. So that's actually one challenge that we found, which is quite common, obviously not just here, but in general when we're speaking to clients.
And how do you react in such situation?
I say, yeah, that's fine. And then I call over my female colleague. So, that's what we normally do. We have a really supportive environment and, it's obviously not something that I think many people realize is a gendered response. But, since we are kind of predominantly women that have technical and STEM backgrounds, it comes as a surprise that we do actually understand the problem and we can help kind of answer and mitigate for it.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And, one of the challenge of startups and especially, tech startups is to raise funding. And I want to share with you one of the figure that I found, in my research is that women-founded startups raised 1.5% of all VC funds in 2022, according to TechCrunch, which is like really, really bad. And I think this figure, I've been hearing it for the last couple of years. So I want to know, do you believe that climate tech, because that's kind of a of a new area, I would say, within the tech ecosystem. Do you think it has the potential to kind of reverse this trend?
I think in general, we've seen climate tech investment has gone down year on year, but obviously that's due to kind of a multitude of reasons. And what was really interesting when, this statistic has actually come across so many times, and it's really sobering. But we actually found out for the VCs that do invest in women, they actually return 68 cents for every dollar invested on revenue, whereas their male counterparts actually return 31 cents.
Oh, wow.
So why are women more effective at actually doing more with the funds and generating more profits? I think it's more of a question of, it's the climate tech space is growing. There's a need for more deep tech and technical solutions. And our understanding of climate technology is really limited. So it's not just about carbon capture anymore. Like, we're operating within the industrial space, and that's a enormous industry. It's, it generates almost 25% of our global emissions, as well as also, makes part of an insane amount of the resources that we actually use. So when we're talking about climate tech, people don't think manufacturing and industrials is really a part of this equation, but we're going to see more niche and kind of subcategories of climate tech roll out. And I hope that this will reverse the trend.
Yeah. And in your experience, I don't know if you, raised fund, for the surplus, but have you faced any biases or stereotypes, because you're a woman led, venture?
To be honest, I feel that we're quite fortunate in this region. We've had a lot of offers. We've actually had to politely decline because they weren't really aligned with what we do. Because obviously raising funding too early on also takes away the autonomy of women. As a female-founded team, we want to be really, really purpose-driven and purpose-centric. And a lot of the time, it is kind of large companies or venture capital arms that are kind of subsets of those companies that they have a very specific solution in mind. So we have to kind of have a trade-off: is that, are we going to lean towards one way or the other, or hold off a little bit more? So we've taken on the daunting task, would not recommend, of actually being bootstrapped to the point that we can actually raise, significant funding at Series A, and hopefully change that trend for women in the region as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a big change.
It is a big change, yeah.
And you said you're purpose driven, as a company. And can you tell us more about how does it translate into the team you're building? Because I know that you have now a good team, around you, the team members. How does it, translate into the team?
I think the team, we're all quite similar in the sense that we know that finance and impact goes hand in hand. So whether we're, everything that we do, I think, is very purposeful in terms of our strategic alliances, what we do, on the daily in terms of operations, the people we associate ourselves with. So I think that kind of, as a micro startup, I suppose, we have less than 10 employees, but we also have a really strong organizational culture. And I think that's something that is, quite important for startups that grow, because as you start growing and you hire in more people, your foundational team will always dictate what kind of impact you're able to make later. But if it's really embedded early on, then we can ensure that each and every one of us has a really specific role to play, whether it's for environment or social causes and so on.
And I must say that your team is really diverse. So it's not something that you mentioned, so I want to say it.
Yeah, they're super diverse, yeah.
Rana, so when it comes to the climate tech ecosystem, do you see more women in this specific, just from your own experience, and especially here in the Middle East, because it's becoming like a big, I would say like an impactful and big, ecosystem, and it's going to grow, in the coming years. Do you see more women, jumping into, starting their own venture and climate, related, startup, or the other way around?
No, that's a great question, Nadine. I think we're seeing definitely a shift of more women taking the kind of jump and leap into, starting their own ventures, even if it's kind of testing the water a little bit, doing it on the side, and then eventually kind of full-blown transitioning into becoming an entrepreneur, or even joining female-led startups or companies as well. Because obviously, not everybody wants to become an entrepreneur. It's a daunting task. And that's something that I didn't want for myself, to be honest. So kind of sitting and talking to you today, I didn't think I'd be referring to myself as one. But, I saw a problem that needed to kind of be executed. Sometimes you find this perfect storm of other women that see the same problem and they get together, and then you have this kind of, concoction of awesomeness, and then you create this kind of startup. But I think as the effects of climate change are kind of intensifying, and we're seeing a shift away from fossil fuels and all of the kind of regional geopolitics that's happening here, I think a lot of women in traditionally resource intensive positions and roles before are starting to see that purpose is really important, and they're shifting towards sustainability and climate tech and clean tech and so on.
And as part of your journey, with the surplus, what was the biggest challenges or, personal kind of challenges that you had to face, in this journey?
I think personal challenges aside, I like to, I'm generally an introvert. So I think being a startup founder, you have to be extremely extroverted to some extent, and you have to be everywhere all at once, and make sure you're kind of, at the epicenter of all of the kind of action. That's been very stressful for me. So when people find out that I'm actually quite introverted, they get quite surprised, but that's been a personal challenge.
You don't look introvert.
That's what I keep hearing. Yeah. But honestly, I will go and switch off at the end of every day and just, sit in a dark room and pretend I don't exist. But I think on a team level, we are trying to essentially challenge the root of the problem, or the core of it, which is really organizational psychology. So we're trying to change people's minds about what they're wasting. And I feel that is a lot more complicated and complex than just looking at technology adoption uptake.
And, so you're leading the surplus, you as a, early stage, I would say, startup, you have to do a lot of things, from, communication, from being out. We were just talking about that before starting the podcast, managing the team, finance, it's a lot of hats that you have to wear. So how do you, juggle from one to another, and how do you keep, yourself, present and grounded as well?
I don't think I'm present and grounded enough. I think, as I was telling you, I just grew my first gray hair. So that's probably a testament to my time management skills. But I have a great team. Honestly, I think we really are the product of the people that we work with. And without a great team, it's extremely difficult to keep head above water. So surrounding yourself with people who know what they're doing and executing the tasks, and also reminding each other to take care of ourselves, is really important. Again, because we're, majority women team, there's a lot more of that nurturing kind of environment. I think that's extremely helpful.
Yeah. And so we're doing this episode because of the International Women's Day. The theme for this year is Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. So I want to hear from you. How do you think we could invest more in women? What can we do to invest more in women?
I think it really just comes down to two things, and I suppose they're interlinked. The first thing is pay for women's solutions. Actually give them time of day and pay for them. List them as suppliers, and collaborate with them. Give them opportunities for growth, whether it's within the organization or outside. Prioritizing women at the core of your operations, I think, is the best way to really empower them, because that's the only way that they can secure that autonomy that they need, and also, progress to where they need to go without you inflicting an opinion on it.
I think it's an amazing advice, and for anyone, listening to us, and especially companies. So just to give you an example, 2 days ago, I have to, set up a new accounting system for my own company. And I added actually a small message in each of the invoice saying to the clients, thanks for basically, making business with us, but thanks for investing in women, in a women-led, company. Just to remind them that, it's a choice, and it makes an impact in the global economy.
Absolutely. No, that's a great way to do it.
So in this special series, we've been, asking the same questions at the end of the podcast to all our guests. And I want to ask them to you as well. So the first one, Rana, is, who is a woman that inspires you?
I had to think about this one, actually, but I think I'll probably go with Dr. Wangari Maathai. She was an extremely inspirational Nobel laureate that drove the environmental movement in Kenya back in the 70s, and actually started this Green Belt movement. But she really understood the link between resource scarcity, environmental degradation, and environmental activism. And she pieced together those those really complex puzzle pieces and brought people together for good and helped, plant trees, which obviously seems like something that's quite basic today. But back in the day, it was really wonderful in a conflict-prone area. And she actually left a legacy behind that is incredibly inspirational. And women that really make those fundamental links, that look at things on a systems level, I think are ones that we should really be truly inspired and humbled by.
Yeah, I totally agree. Do you think we have enough role models? I mean, women, especially in the sustainability environmental field?
That's a really tough question. To be honest, I'm not one to really, idolize, I suppose, but I think I'm just really fortunate to be surrounded by enormous amounts of inspirational women on a daily basis, to be honest. I don't know how to answer that question.
So the second question is, what superpower do women possess that we should rely on more?
Resilience. 100%.
You're the second one saying resilience.
It's really interesting though, isn't it? Because I think we have this ability to be able to adapt, and our capacity to adapt is a lot higher. Women physically feel a lot more pain as well, but it's funny that often that studies have shown that sometimes women are dismissed in the workplace because they think that they're given an emotional response to something, but they're the ones that are often able to kind of snap back very quickly. So I would say definitely 100% resilience.
Yeah, beautiful answer. And the last one, Rana, what advice would you give to young women watching us?
I'd say be stubborn, as stubborn as you possibly can be. And there is no solution that is too small to make a really enormous impact.
So, Rana, if people want to learn more about what you do and yourself, how they can contact you?
They can just shoot me over an email, rana@thesurplus.com. That's with 2 S's. Or just find me on LinkedIn and let's have a chat.
Super. Thank you so much, Rana. Very, very inspiring. And I wish you all the success with The Surplus.
Thank you so much, Nadine.
If you enjoyed this episode, I have one request for you. Can you please share it with at least one woman around you that would benefit from this conversation? And we have 2 more episodes on this series, so stay tuned.